Oh no, StreamYard lost access to your LinkedIn account. Oh crud. Why is it disabled? Oh, why is that? This
So,
application is disabled. Why? Well, we don't have to do LinkedIn, I suppose, but why is it doing that?
well, we're live to YouTube, it says. So, hi, everyone.
Uh-oh. Well, hello. We're not live on LinkedIn, but we're just going to go with this. So we're just going to forget that. Um, and we're just going to go ahead with what we're doing. So, hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. Today we have a very special guest. CJ Hayden is here with us. Hello, CJ.
Hello, Michelle. Great to be here.
And we have known each other for quite a while. We met in the Bay Area when I lived in the Bay Area before, probably right around when I was launching my consulting business. And that was in the, gosh, 1999, 2000 ish. So we've known each other a long time and stayed
And
in
now,
touch.
neither of us are in the Bay Area because I'm in Philadelphia now.
That's right. So now we're both on Eastern time. So it's a beautiful thing. It works out. So today, first of all, I want to introduce CJ because she has written a number of books. She has, pretty much done it all throughout her career. And I want her to talk about all of her latest and greatest, initiatives and what's going on with her. And then we're going to get into our topic, which is how to make sure your own marketing stuff gets done. So go ahead, CJ, take it away.
Okay, so I'm the author of Get Clients Now, which I'm honored to say has become the sales and marketing Bible for many self employed professionals and creatives. I am also the author of the One Person Marketing Plan workbook, which I'm sure we'll end up talking about at some point today. And my most recent book is Overcoming the Fear of Self Promotion.
Ooh.
So I'm sure that'll come up today too. I've been a business coach since 1992 to freelancers and self-employed folks. And I run a monthly online retreat called Work On It Day.
That
So
is great.
what's happening these days? What's going on now?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, you Get Clients Now is, something everybody who works for themselves should have on their shelf. And I think it's also very important for people to be able to put that focus time toward getting their stuff done. So the fact that you have a way to help people do that is pretty cool. So I'm putting all the links in the chat. Hi, Paula. Yay. Thanks for doing that, Paula. I don't know what happened with the LinkedIn link, but that's how technology treats us sometimes. But yeah, so we're going to give everybody a few minutes to get here because that may delay some people from getting here. And I think I'll also share that we are doing this. I'll share that we're live and let people know. But yeah, so we're going to be chatting about how to get your own marketing stuff done because I think that is something everybody struggles with. I also love the overcoming the fear of self promotion because I think far too many of us are really reluctant to talk about ourselves and our work and what we do. And I don't think that we should be. So,
And those two topics are very related.
yeah. Yeah, I think if you're going to work for yourself, you have to be like, okay, there are certainly ways to do it where, less and less maybe uncomfortable for people, I guess. I'm trying to figure out the word I want to use, but I know that some people just are not comfortable doing it. And I think that they need to kind of maybe just get over that a little bit. And maybe there are ways we can talk about to do that too. So
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
let's see. So, okay, we'll get started with the question in just a second here.
Okay, thanks for posting those links so people can check it out. And Lorena here, Paula, says, I think a lot of us cringe at self-promotion because it feels like bragging or boasting. Absolutely.
Yes. Being in PR, I I have to, I if I feel like if I don't talk about myself, who will? And I feel like I also kind of have to, set a good example because I want my clients to be, talking about themselves and their work. So if
Yeah.
I'm not doing it, like, I kind of have to do it. But I also sometimes cringe when I do it. I mean, it's just something I've kind of had to learn to get over a little bit. But I mean, I've been at this a long time, and I know that if they're folks are newer to freelancing, that might not be their natural, way to go about it. So, I think that we'll definitely be able to help some folks with tips and advice on that. Okay, I'll get the questions up here in just a second.
Okay, great. And
And
yeah, that whole issue of finding fear or resistance or the inner critic conversation about doing sales and marketing, it's a big one. And it's so related to why it is that we don't get our stuff done. I think
right,
a lot of us can find it so much easier to talk about our clients than about ourselves. And that's great. It makes us good at what we do, but it doesn't help us in getting the word out there so that we get those clients to begin with.
right. Yeah. Well, and I think it's you can leverage the work that you've done too to get more work of the same, get more similar work or more similar clients. So I think it's I know some people are just almost too busy to do it, or they are just, like they don't know what to say. There's that too. So we're going to talk about that. And I am going to put the question up. It's almost 10 after. Okay. Just reminding everybody what the topic is. We're going to be talking about this today. Well, 5 questions, and of course, everybody is welcome to chime in. Oh, Paula, with queries. Okay, the me. I know the me thing. I was just saying that to somebody the other day because I was like, oh gosh, on LinkedIn, I feel like it's all me because I have been doing some like stuff for book promotion, and I've been on some podcasts and things, and I'm like, oh no, it's me. I'm talking about me again. Like,
And
oh,
of course, when you have a book, you have to. It's absolutely necessary. You have to let people know. I can't even count the number of people who I've known for a long time who say, oh, you have a new book? Gee, I didn't realize that. So I know that even I am still not doing enough to let people know, yes, I do have a new book and you should get it because it's great.
right. But the thing is, and here's another thing, just this is not necessarily on topic, but with the book thing, yes, I had no idea. Like getting the book, first of all, getting it written is one piece, then getting it published is another piece, and then you have to talk about it all the time, and then you have to get people to review the book, and that is really hard to do. So I had no idea, like, though, I mean, again, this is I'm a first timer, so I'm kind of like, wow, this is a lot more. They just, at some point I'm going to write about the whole process of it's not just getting the book written, people. It's like, oh, there's a lot more. I'm sure there are books about that already, but I'm going to write just a post about my experience because there was a lot going on there. But anyway.
Good, you should.
So let's go ahead. Let's jump in with the question. So Q1, I'll put it up here on the screen. What gets in the way of getting our own marketing stuff done? And we kind of have touched on it a little bit, but let's dig into that.
So in the first chapter of my book, Get Clients Now, I named 3 reasons. You can't decide where to start. You aren't sure how to put the pieces together, or you can't stay motivated, which may be because you're experiencing some kind of fear or resistance. So when you can't decide where to begin, or you're not sure how to put the pieces together, you know that there's marketing and sales stuff you need to be doing, but you're just not sure what to do first. Should you follow up with the people who you met at a conference last week, or compose emails to some people who previously told you maybe they could use you later in the year? Should you be paging through your LinkedIn contacts looking for some likely prospects, or is it finally time to start that blog that you've been thinking about? So you've got so many ideas and possibilities in your head that you're spinning your wheels in analysis paralysis. And as a result, you can end up doing nothing. Or maybe you find yourself doing start and stop marketing, where you start working on one approach and then you drop it and you switch to something else. So even though you spend some time on it, nothing actually ever gets done. When you aren't feeling motivated, everything else in your life seems more interesting than marketing. So whether that's scrolling on social media, or taking a class to brush up your professional skills, or shopping for a new gadget, or texting with a friend. And if you're experiencing any kind of fear or resistance around marketing and sales, it's a completely natural response just to avoid it, right? After all, there's nobody to make you do it. Your clients only want you to do their work, and everybody else in your life is likely nudging you to either do something for them or with them.
Mm-hmm.
And the constant notifications you get on their phone, they have their own draw. So you'll notice that nowhere in anything I just said did I say the problem with getting your marketing done is that you don't have the time to market. And that's because 99% of you actually do have the time. You're just using it for something other than marketing. And maybe you're so busy with client work that you neglect your own marketing completely, until all of a sudden your contract ends and you find yourself with nothing else lined up. Or maybe you're spending time with your favorite avoidance behavior, like binging a show on Netflix. Or you're doing something that seems productive, like reorganizing your client files. Sure, you're busy. We're all busy. But what you
Mm-hmm.
spend time on is a choice. And if you're not choosing marketing and sales for at least some of where your time goes, you're going to end up walking away from freelancing and getting a job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a couple of things there that you said, the overwhelm and then the doing nothing. Because I think for me, and I still do this sometimes. It used to be worse, but like, okay, yeah, I could send a LinkedIn, connection request, or I could send out a letter of inquiry, or I could do, and so then you're just like ping ponging around, like, I mean, and it's not really effective because you're just like, you know, maybe you send a couple of messages, but that's, in and of itself, that's probably not going to get you anywhere. So I think it's like you don't have a plan, you're not organized, you get overwhelmed, and you just like throw your hand up. And we've had people, I mean, come to that way, see like, well, I tried everything, but I mean, there's a difference between like just put a job once or something, and then actually having a approach and kind of sticking with it, following up, following through, whatever you would call it. I'm sure we'll get into more of that.
So, Michelle, you're breaking up a lot. Might help if you drop off your camera for a minute.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm pretty sure it's you because my signal looks okay. And
Okay.
often just shutting the camera makes it possible to hear the audio better.
Is that better or no?
No, your video is still breaking up too, but I could hear you better. That's that
Okay.
moment. So hopefully it's just a glitch and it'll pass in a second.
Yeah. Today we're having a couple technology issues.
Technology, yeah.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right in what you were saying, that when you find yourself just spinning like that, it is
Mhm.
just not productive. And it's so essential to really be able to choose. And there's a lot of influence that's causing us to not choose.
Mhm.
There's the fear thing, there's the constant interruptions of modern life, whether it's the phone or the browser notification or the next meeting or whatever it is, right? A text
Mhm.
comes in. We're so communicated to that any one of those things can pull us off track, even when it's somebody who's trying to be helpful to us, like the friend who says, "Oh, I'm really having a lot of success with video marketing these days. Maybe you should try that." And that becomes the next shiny object that again pulls you off what you originally intended to do.
Mhm.
So it really is essential to have a plan of your own and to resist all of these outside influences that keep pulling you off it.
Yeah. And I think I remember, I think that's where I heard it was from you, was yeah, you not everything, you don't have to do everything, and you can't do everything, and not everything is gonna work the same for you as it did for someone else, so, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you and I, and probably most of the people listening, are freelancers, self-employed people who are solos, right? They don't have anybody to delegate to. Maybe you've got a virtual assistant, right? Who you can
Mhm.
hand some things off to. Maybe you have somebody who occasionally takes on projects or tasks for you, but most of the time it's just you. And we get this idea in our heads, I think, that because there are so many ways to market yourself and we
Mhm.
see so many people doing all those different things, that we should, lots of should, right,
Right.
be doing all of that. I should be present on every social media platform, right? I should have an email newsletter. I should have a blog. I should be doing public speaking. And one person cannot manage all of those different things and cannot execute them effectively.
Right. Yeah, and that's I think okay, well, I don't wanna give away all the all the good stuff coming up here. How can you hear me? Are you having can you
Yeah,
hear
you're back.
me better? Okay,
Yeah,
good.
you're 100%
Alright,
now.
just checking here. Okay, so we're gonna put up the second question, which is, what if a freelancer doesn't know what to do to market themselves? And I think that dovetails right into what we were talking about.
It does. The starting place is being willing to learn what works and what doesn't work. If you don't know the answers, okay, admit that and take steps to find them. I think that unfortunately, what a lot of freelancers do is just throw a dart at a random marketing approach that shows up in their inbox or on their screen because it feels so easy to pay somebody to execute a LinkedIn marketing campaign for you or to sign up for a class on video marketing. But if anybody tells you that the magic solution to getting clients is to buy their foolproof system, you should run in the opposite direction. I am a huge
Right.
proponent, as I know you know, Michelle, because you've read Get Clients Now, of making sure that you have the basics covered in marketing and sales before you try anything fancy. Are you collecting names of people who might hire you and following up with those people regularly? Are you looking for people who could be potential referral sources for you and building relationships with those people? Do you have a website or a LinkedIn profile that clearly describes what you do and gives people some evidence why they should hire you? Until you have those basics covered, you can and you should forget about social media or search engine optimization or paid advertising or video marketing or anything else a vendor or a supposed guru is trying to sell you. I think one of the reasons that freelancers and other kinds of professionals get all tangled up in these questions of how to market themselves is that taking these basic steps, like reaching out to referral sources and following up with potential clients, they can be scary. It's anxiety provoking to talk to people who might say no to you, while paying a vendor or somebody offering a class, oh, that's so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we see a really quite a few people now trying to sell freelancers all kinds of solutions that I don't think, I mean, I'm not going to say they're all like, not necessary or shady, but some of them really are. And it's sad to me because like freelancers are struggling anyway, I think in the current, you know, economy and just,
Mhm.
conditions that we're trying to work under right now. I think people are struggling. And especially, if you're not established and, you might be grasping at straws and like somebody tries to sell you something and you might be like, oh yeah, this is going to fix everything. And I'll pay the $1,000 or the $500 or, because it'll solve all my problems. And it's the truth is it does not work that way. So you just have to be careful who you do, what you spend money on, who, you're buying something from. I mean, there are definitely people out there who have, you know, good products or courses too, but I think I would just use a lot of care because I think sometimes they're just good at like trying to sell this course, but they don't really have any experience to back it up. And just so I would say, just be careful with that for sure.
Absolutely. And, I'm sure that you have the same experience I do on LinkedIn in particular, where I get dozens of pitches in my inbox every single week from people who are trying to get me to buy some system or hire them to get clients for me.
Right. Yeah.
And it's crazy making, because obviously these people haven't read my profile before they do this, or they wouldn't be trying to pitch me a system for getting clients. You don't tell the author of Get Clients Now, hey, I can help you get clients. No, nobody looks at that. And
Yeah.
some of these pitches are so off target for somebody who does the things that I do. I mean, clearly I identify myself as working with self-employed people. I don't have corporate clients. I don't pitch big businesses. And yet people are trying to tell me that they'll prospect for me or they'll close sales for me. They're not going to get me to do those things because I know that's not appropriate. But for people who are newer in business, they don't know what's appropriate. And that's why I think being part of communities and having colleagues who are in the same kind of business as you is so important, because that's how you learn these things. I know that the YouTube freelance chat has not taken off as much as the old Twitter freelance chat, but that was a great community for people finding out what worked for other people. Professional associations are great for that. There's online groups that are great for that. I think people who are new too are sometimes afraid to reach out to colleagues who could look like competitors and say, what helps you get clients? What's really worked for you? But we
Mhm.
have to do that because that's how we learn. That's how we found out. When we're new, we're not expected to know the things that are most effective. And that's when we're most vulnerable to somebody trying to sell us something that they say, oh, of course, this will work for you. This works for everybody. Nothing works for everybody. That's nonsense.
No. No, that's the thing. Everybody's a little bit different. I was looking at what Paula said, because she said she's having trouble defining who her audience is because she writes for a lot of different, I guess, she does different types of writing. So I don't know. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
It's a difficult question because that can get in your way of doing any marketing if you're unclear about who your audience is. I always tell people that if you're not sure, try to categorize groups who could be audiences
Mhm.
rather than just kind of throwing out a beacon and saying, well, it could be anybody, because it really couldn't be anybody. You need to get specifics. If there's two different groups, define who those groups are and talk to them differently. Like even when you're doing a website revamp, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody could have right there on their front page, I work for these people and I work for these people. Here's something to click on if you're one of these people. Here's something to click on if you're one of these people, right?
Yeah.
To lead them down the channel to get to the right information that
Mm-hmm.
applies to their particular situation. That is a much, much better approach than having a definition that's wishy-washy, right?
Mm-hmm.
That includes too many ands of, well, it's this and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
No, get as specific as you can and then lead those people down particular paths. Two is fine, two
Mm-hmm.
different audiences. Three is pushing it. If it's more than three, no.
Well, here's what I always think. And I mean, I was afraid to kind of define that for a long time for my
Mhm.
own, business. But I think just because I say I specialize in working with, B2B clients, that doesn't mean that I won't have other clients, it doesn't really stop those people from contacting me or finding me or whatever. It's just that I'm kind of trying to choose a lane and be a little bit, to be clear to that group of people. So, and that's how I set up my website when I redid it was I kind of have, okay, if this is you, go here, if this is you, go here, but it's not based on necessarily, it's more like if you understand what PR is and what you need, you can go here. And if you don't understand, then you might want to start, it's more like set it
Yeah.
up like that, but
Yeah.
similar.
And Paula says, sounds like she's on the right track by having a separate page for her script writing. Yes, absolutely. Definitely on the right track with
Yeah.
doing that. You know, it's a shame that LinkedIn doesn't allow us to have multiple profiles and that we have to resort to having two separate simultaneous job positions, for example, right?
Yeah.
To draw the distinction between, well, I do this and I also do this, because that's so true for many of us and
Hmm.
becoming more true all the time in the way that the current economy works. You know, we're working gigs, right? No
Right.
matter what kind of business we're in. And there can be some pretty significant differences between those things. It would be great if we all had just the one audience, but so true for many of us that we have two or maybe even three.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really hard because I do wonder, I think the fear is like you're gonna turn somebody off, like they're gonna say, "Oh, well, this they don't work with people like me, so I'm not even gonna," and I haven't really found that to be true because I wanted to kind of weed out some people that, I mean, obviously, like I don't work with giant companies either, but I do work with small businesses, like 500 or fewer employees, I'd say, or in that and those that they have a budget, right? Because sometimes
Yeah.
I'll get somebody contacting me that really they don't need or can't afford, my services, and that's perfectly fine. But I try to be clear on my website, like, I put some pricing up there to basically say, this is kind of an idea so that you know that you're gonna have to invest something in it. So yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of specificity is really helpful to simply say, if you have 500 plus employees, great. You're the right in the right ballpark for me. I could probably help you.
Right.
And I think a lot of times we're afraid to do that because, like you said, it rules people out, but it also doesn't allow you to rule people in. And
Hmm.
that's what's much more important. You know, if somebody knocks on your door and says, "Hi, can I hire you?" Of course, you could choose to do that. But
Sure.
what you're doing with your marketing is you're trying to reach out and to attract. And for that, people need to be able to recognize themselves in what you're putting out there.
Right. Yeah, I think that's helped me get very clear just for my own benefit even because, sometimes you go down that path with somebody who you think I don't know if this person's a fit, but I'll talk to them and then, you're like 2 phone calls and 3 proposals and like it's not, they don't have the budget. And then it's like, okay, well, I mean, we probably should have had that conversation in the beginning, and then we would have had a better, we would have, I mean, it's just, you don't want to waste people's time. So,
Right. Yeah. You don't want to waste yours and you don't want to waste theirs.
right. Exactly. That's how I kind of view the marketing as being, hopefully being more, yeah, getting just more specific about, the kinds of clients that might be able to use my services that I would be able to help. So I'm going to put the next question up. Let's see. How can we deal with any fear or resistance we have about marketing?
So this may sound like a trite answer, but first you have to acknowledge that you have fear or resistance. Most of us spend a considerable amount of time denying that we're afraid or trying to push through it or resisting marketing and chalking it up to our being lazy or undisciplined.
Mhm.
When we procrastinate, much of the time it's because we're avoiding something. So you need to face that head on. When I wrote Overcoming the Fear of Self-Promotion, the first exercise I included was something that I named the I am technique. 3 steps. 1, I'm aware. 2, I accept. 3, I can move ahead. So the way this works is if you turn up the volume on your awareness and you begin to notice, I'm resisting making that phone call. Get really conscious about it. Don't let it slide away and say, oh, I don't feel like doing that right now. I think I'll do something else. No, I'm resisting making that phone call. So instead of pushing it away or ridiculing it or pretending it's not there, accept it. It exists. Tell yourself, I accept that I'm feeling resistant. You might even just say that out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And once you become aware of your feeling and you've accepted that you feel that way, you can then choose to move ahead regardless of the feeling. You can declare, okay, I'm able to make this call anyway. So a technique like this and others that I share in the book, they're not just some woo-woo nonsense. They're based on actual clinical research. It's the same principle that's operating when you start a food diet by simply writing down everything you eat. Once you start noticing exactly what's happening, your behavior starts to shift all by itself. So there's lots of other techniques to employ after you've mastered that one. So, for example, disputing your inner critic or developing your own personal fear antidote. But the most important thing to realize is that you don't have to let your marketing and sales get watered down by fear or by resistance or the inner critic. You can get control of what you're choosing to do and not to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just knowing that, first of all, that's normal to have a fear or reluctance about promoting yourself, and then, to acknowledge it, and then to, like, okay, now, what am I going to do about it? Because I think to change anything, you first have to recognize, that there is something that you need to change. So I think
Mhm.
we just get in our heads so much. I mean, I don't know, like, again, when we work for ourselves and we're here in our little echo chamber all by ourselves all day long, and, like, that's why I do think it's important to have other freelancers or self-employed people or consultants or whatever you want to call them, to bounce ideas off of and feel like you trust, somebody to trust, to kind of just get some of that out there. And that's why I think, that's what I have tried to create with the chat, is just really a community, a place where people can feel comfortable and, sharing, what their fears or reluctance might be, and then how can we as a group maybe help or suggest things. So, I mean, I think that there's just a lot to just the psychological piece of it.
There is a lot. I was chuckling a minute ago because Angela said, thanks for the mini therapy session.
Yeah.
And It is absolutely true that a lot of what goes on with us about sales and marketing is psychological. It's a lot easier to say, oh, I'm not sure what to do. It's very easy to say, I don't have the time. But
Yeah.
when we put something off, when we deny it, when we resist doing it, when we procrastinate about it, where's that coming from? It's coming from something inside of you that is either denying that there's a problem and therefore running the opposite direction and avoiding it, or making a different choice. Like, I will now scroll meaninglessly on social media for the next half hour. We're not saying that to ourselves, right? Because we're not even noticing that that's what we're doing. It's happening inside our head where we're going, oh, I don't want to do this, so I'll do something else. When you get conscious of it and you start to notice and you vocalize it and you say, oh, this is what I'm doing, it immediately starts to shift.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that this is such an important, thing for people to understand, because I think a lot of times we just cannot get out of our own way, and having advice that, about like the kind that's in your book would be really helpful for a lot of people, because again, over the years, I mean, the chat it'll be 6 years old in the fall. And so, I mean, I've seen a lot of freelancers come to the chat and express, how they try things and just nothing works, just nothing's working. And I feel for them. However, I feel like there's probably a lot more to that. And I mean, I'm going to say, yes, Angela mentioned therapy. I, you know, I go to therapy for my personal life, but it does help me in my business life too, because it gives me something to, it's stuff to think about that actually applies in both, because you just get in your own way, get in your own head, get in your own way. It's so important to kind of try to figure all that out. And a lot of people just don't understand how to do it, or, why they need to do it, or why it's important. So,
I was talking to someone recently who had signed up for a classified ad campaign in a local publication. And when I talked to her, she already knew that it was probably not the best thing to do or the best way to spend that money. But yet she had done it. It was almost as if she had watched herself do it. And that's great that she's aware to begin with that maybe this was not the best thing to do. And by the way, after our conversation about it, she went back to them and said, yeah, can I cancel this contract? And she renegotiated it with them. But it's like Paula says, if you can catch yourself saying, I'm not in the headspace for this right now. Okay, that is step one. Oh, wait a minute. I'm choosing to do something else. And I also see what Paula said was lamest excuse ever. Okay, maybe, but it doesn't help actually to beat yourself up about it, to say, oh, I'm just lazy. I'm going to procrastinate. No, give yourself some credit. You're stopping and taking a look and you're saying, wow, I'm not doing this because I'm not in the headspace right now. That enables you to get curious and to say, all right, well, what might it take for me to get in the headspace to do this right now? One of the tips I share in the book is I have a selection of quick fixes, right? I have some longer term stuff that you can work through in order to help yourself do a big shift. But one of the quick fixes is find something else that you can do at the same time as you're doing the thing that you're resisting so hard, to take the edge off. So what's an example of that? Answering email while watching a movie that you like and you've seen before, so you don't have to give it 100% of your attention. Is that a productive use of your time? Every time management expert in the world would say no. But I'm going to say, if it gets you to answer the emails, it's a good thing. Right? Absolutely. Answer it while watching the movie, if that makes it happen.
Yeah. I mean, and I know Paula takes her dog on walks, and so, I mean, I'm sure that that's, I mean, just taking a break, just getting, sometimes just like, I mean, don't let yourself off the hook, I guess. Like, don't take the whole afternoon off, but like maybe you just need, 10, 15 minutes or something, and just do something that, kind of maybe can help you shake that, that reluctance, so you don't get so, like, entrenched in your, like, "Oh, I don't wanna do this."
Right. Because not being in the headspace right now doesn't mean that that has to last for hours.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can do something about it. You can, like you said, take the dog for a walk. Great. Take yourself for a walk if you don't have a dog.
Yeah.
But even something as simple as standing up and smiling at the telephone, right?
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah, yeah.
attitude shift
Yeah.
instantaneously. And we look at that stuff and we say, oh, yeah, that's a little, but it works. It works. People have come up with solutions that really help them to place the dreaded follow up call, right? Like
Right.
singing and dancing around the office.
Oh,
If
I was thinking that, like, sometimes I'll have a Spotify on, maybe there's a song and I just wanna get up and, like, kinda, you know, just dance a little bit, or, like, I don't know. Just
Yeah, or call a friend first. And
yeah,
the friend doesn't have to be there, right? Call a
yeah,
friend and talk to their voicemail. Hi
yeah,
there, great to talk to you. I'm looking forward to our thing tomorrow night. Get yourself into that frame of mind and then
right.
immediately make the call while you're still in that space. The point is to not say, oh, I'm not in the headspace, so I'm going to just walk away from the whole thing, but to look and say, oh, hmm, I'm going to get curious about this. What could help me get into the headspace that I would need to have?
And usually it's not as bad as you think it's gonna be, and you feel so good after you've done it. So I that's motivation for me too. I'm like, "Oh, man, I put this off for a week, and it was like took me 2 minutes, and it wasn't as bad as it wasn't," so we just again, we're just our own worst enemy sometimes with that whole, like, overthinking. I mean, I'm such an overthinker, and I think there's a good side of that, but then there's also, oh, it's not always good, so
And it's a thing that we all do. You're hearing us talk about it. We're admitting to it. Paula and Angela in the chat are admitting that, yeah, this kind of stuff goes on. We think about this. One of the ways I think we hurt ourselves as freelancers and self employed people is when somebody says, how are things going? Too often we say, oh, everything is great. Instead of saying, oh, I am really struggling with marketing these days. If we all walked around saying that, then we would recognize, oh, this is a normal thing. It's not just me. Everybody has this problem. Guess what? If everybody has this problem, there's probably some solutions.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, and you just have to find the one that works for you. That's really it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put the next question up. Hopefully, let's see. What are some ways to make sure our own marketing stuff gets done, especially when we are actually busy? It's not always about being busy, but sometimes we really are busy. So,
Yeah. Okay. So you'll notice that I always have 3 or 4 things that I think are the things. And that's because that's the way my brain works. So I put things into categories and I
mhm,
systematize them. So for a lot of people, that's not the way their brain works. So just take these as being guidelines. I think there's 4 secrets. Number one, have a plan so that you know what it is that you intend to do.
mhm,
Number two, have a way to track what you did and what you didn't do and what the results are. Number three, allow the time for it to happen. I see
mhm.
Andrew saying this in the chat too. Number four, set up some sort of accountability to help you stay on track. So when you have a plan for what you're going to do, you don't have to spin your wheels when you sit down to do some marketing. You can just look at your plan. and see what's next. And a plan does not need to be complicated. It just needs to be in writing. A plan that you keep only in your head has a sneaky tendency to shift, while a written plan, it stays solid.
Mm-hmm.
So then you need a way to track what you did and what you didn't do. I like to include numbers in my plan that I can track just with check marks. So, for example, my plan might include reach out to 3 potential referral sources per week. And at the end of the week, there's no question about whether I did that or not. And if
Mm-hmm.
I did, I can check it off. You can also track it the reverse way by saying, reach out to potential referral sources every week. And then in your tracking, note how many you contacted this week. Was it
Mm-hmm.
1? Was it 2? Was it 3? Keep track of the kind of results you're getting. Are you getting new referral sources or new leads or new contracts or clients? Whatever you decide is the thing that you need to be pursuing right now, so you can see what progress you're making.
Mm-hmm.
So the third element, allow the time for the actions in your plan to happen. Just like Angela says, she says, put it on a box on the calendar, give it a time slot, right? I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of time blocking. So make an appointment with yourself, block it out on your calendar. That's Make it reserved for marketing and sales, and treat that appointment as seriously as if it was an appointment with a client. If you need to move it for some vitally important reason, you don't cancel it. You reschedule it, and reschedule it within the same week. So if you put that appointment in your calendar, the appointment with yourself to do marketing and sales, before
Mm-hmm.
you schedule anything else for the week, you can schedule everything else around it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that last piece is you need some kind of accountability to keep going with your plan. For some people, just being able to check it off is enough,
Mm-hmm.
right? For some of us, it's like, oh, I got to check that thing off. Yay, me, right? But a lot of us can benefit from some kind of outside accountability where we're reporting in to
Mm-hmm.
a person or to people. That's why I offer a monthly work on it day where people gather online to work on marketing or any other project. We announce what we're going to do, we go work on that thing, and then we come back and we report how it went. And you can set up the same thing with a buddy or with a group of colleagues or with a coach. It's really, really effective in making sure that you actually follow through on whatever it was you said you were going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple things. I mean, I think you have to put those blocks of time on your calendar. I mean, I would have never been able to finish my book if I hadn't done that. And I do have to thank Paula because I don't know, she said, I think Marketing Mondays, or there was some, I think that was the name of it, but she said her Monday mornings, I think, were devoted to marketing for her biz. And I mean, I kind of did the same thing, but I did it on Friday morning. So for every Friday morning from like 9 to noon, I was working on a chapter of the book, refining it or writing it or editing or whatever. So that's the only way that I ever got that thing across the finish line. And if I hadn't done that, it wouldn't, I don't know if it would still probably be sitting here on my desk, and my files undone. So I think that's really important. But yeah, I mean, yeah. Okay. My Monday. Yep. Okay. Yeah. 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 Yep.
Yeah,
So
that's what Paula says. My
yeah.
Mondays for a year were devoted to creative writing. And you know, I so relate to the book issue because I've done 7 now. And the only way that I have found for that to happen is to participate in Shut Up and Write, which is the same principle as my work on it days. Is there's Shut Up and Write chapters on Zoom and all over the world, literally, in cafes and coffee shops, where writers get together not to talk about the writing or share their writing, but to write, to sit down for an hour, for 90 minutes, for 2
Hmm.
hours, and to say,
Hmm.
I am going to work on chapter 3 where I have a really sticky issue I need to work out, and then go do that thing and come back at the end of that time and with the energy of all the other people around you doing that kind of work too. And to say, okay, I resolved my issue in chapter 3. I can't believe I got there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I worried before I tried this method that maybe on Fridays I wouldn't feel like writing. Well, I just don't feel like it today. Well, okay, maybe I don't feel like actually writing, but I can do some research. I need to find a statistic for this, point I'm trying to make, or there's always something that I could do. And once I started doing it, then, once I, sat in the chair and forced myself to do it, then it was easier and I did actually get more done than I maybe would have thought, instead of just dismissing it, being like, well, I'm not going to do this today. And of course, I mean, if you do have a day when you really are, having a bad time, or, you're not feeling well, or what, I mean, certainly you have to give yourself a little grace, but like, I think it's really nice to have that block of time every week at the same time. For me anyway, it was very helpful. So I think that there's something to that.
Yeah, there really is something to that, because even if, like you said, you don't feel like writing that day, okay, well, you can do something else to move the book forward, even if it's not actually writing.
Hmm.
Maybe you'll motivate yourself to get it done if what you do instead is you write an advertising blurb for it, like it was done already,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? You're still
Yeah.
working on it.
Yes, something. Do something resembling anything, with regard to the project that you've decided to focus on. I think that's it. And again, we really let ourselves off the hook. And I know there's a lot of advice. So like, we have to treat ourselves well and self-care. I believe in that. But I
Mhm.
also think sometimes we need a little tough love. We have to get a little tough with ourselves. Like, okay, now, like, let's be honest here with ourselves. Like,
Right. And we need to really treat taking care of ourselves as helping ourselves getting what we want.
hmm.
Right? If
Yeah.
I want to have clients, it's definitely looking after myself to do what I need to do to get those clients. And to ignore that, I'm not looking after me.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, I think you have to balance it, because I think, there's a tendency to, maybe go a little too far, and, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but sometimes I feel like I don't want to let myself off the hook. I'm gonna be a little harder on myself. So anyway, I'm gonna put up the last question,
Yes.
because we are getting close to our hour. Whoops. Oh wait. Boop. Where are we? Okay. Q5. And we will put it on the screen. Is there a way to put these ideas together into a reliable plan or system?
So I don't care what system you use. I don't care what plan you use. You just need one.
Mhm,
So I designed a system that I describe in my book, Get Clients Now, that includes the elements that I've been talking about. Make a plan, track it,
mhm,
block out the time for it, set up accountability for yourself. And for people who want to include even more measurement in their plan, I created an expansion of the Get Clients Now system in the One Person Marketing Plan workbook. And both of those systems are perennial. They work no matter what type of marketing you do or what tech platforms you use to do it. Sometimes people say, oh, you need to have things that are more up to date. It's like, remember what I said earlier about the basics? The basics are still really solid, the same way that people have been getting clients since the dawn of time, or whatever their business was, still work. And no matter what tech platform you're using to do the thing, the basics are still the same. You have to identify who can be a client for you, make sure that you're saying all the right things for them to know that you're there to work for them. And when people say, I'm interested, to follow up with those people while simultaneously you're building word of mouth by not just hoping that people will talk about you, but actually making sure that they will by building relationships with colleagues and others who are in touch with your likely clients all the time. Those mysterious referral sources I mentioned earlier, right? That's a big part of what really works. So, of course, I would like everybody to use the Get Clients Now system. But the most important thing is that your own plan or your own system includes those 4 elements that I mentioned. Make a plan rather than just winging it. Have a way to track what you do and your results, allow the time, and set up some kind of accountability.
Yeah, I mean, I think we might have touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think, at least for me, one of the challenges is, okay, I know I'm going to have some time. Like this summer, I do have extra time. So how am I going to spend the time? And it's terrible to have the block of time, but you don't have the plan or the organization. So when you have the block of time, you're sitting here going, okay, and then it's just way too easy to just scroll on social or just totally disregard it. So I think getting yourself organized and getting, even having, like I've heard people say, well, I have 15 minutes between calls. What can I do? So just having even a list of like little tasks you could do or short things that you could do that would take 5 minutes or 10 minutes, so you're not just frittering away your time, because I just think it's so easy to do that. Now there's so many distractions, and I can go down a rabbit hole really easily if I start looking at a post or a story or email or whatever. So I think, again, I think there's some self-discipline that needs to come into play here, and I struggle. So I'm saying it, and it's a message to myself, but maybe other people can relate to it too. I don't know.
And self-discipline sometimes rubs people the wrong way. So I would prefer it to be self-knowledge and compassion for who you are and how you work best. So the thing I said earlier about accepting the fact that, okay, I'm resisting doing this. I feel like I don't like it, right? Accept it. Grant yourself some slack. It's there. Oh my God, there's the fear again. Oh, here it is. Oh, it's there, right?
Right.
And compassionately look for, okay, I realize that I can move forward despite this. So what's going to help me do that? Get curious. What can help me move forward despite the fact that this is the way I am? And for some people, it's as simple as figuring out the ways to market that are better in alignment with who you are and how you are.
Because if you don't like doing it, you're certainly not going to be excited or anxious to do it. Like again, I think sometimes we do have to push ourselves a little bit to get out of our comfort zone on that stuff. But if you're not doing anything or you're not doing it consistently, you probably need to hone in on the ones that you really don't hate doing, at least. I mean, maybe none of it's fun for some people. I don't know.
And I mentioned earlier, right, that there's, a quick fixes in this book, Overcoming the Fear of Self-Promotion. And one of the quick fixes is finding a different way to market that is more in alignment with who you are and how you do things best. Because then it becomes a pull rather than a push. You can feel like, oh, this feels right and good. And you don't have to be cracking the whip over your head.
Yeah, some things are really fun. I really enjoy, and then other things I'm just like, wow, I don't know. Like courses. I really need to put together some courses, and I have just had such a time like cracking that code, and that's the next thing I have to focus on because the book is out now, and I'm like, okay, now it's time to work on the courses, and I'm like, oh, but what am I going to use to do the courses, and how am I going to put it together, and how am I going to market, so it's just like, oh, instead of, doing that, spiraling, I need to kind of be like, okay, here's step one. I need to do this, then I can do that, so it's just, I don't know. And I mean, to Angela's point about the time of day, I have found myself working later now that it's summer. Like my day starts a little later, and I will kind of sometimes work more into the evening. But I think it's important to know, like, when you are like in that most productive mode or, able to get yourself there. So.
Agreed.
Yeah. So we are Right, out of time. Unless anybody has a question for CJ, of course, we were talking throughout the chat, and I'm sure people were asking questions and posting their thoughts. So, but I'm sure that you're always open to questions. I know that you're always very, very kind and supportive, and I just appreciate you. You have been such an inspiration to me and continue to be. And I can't thank you enough for all your kind encouragement and mentoring and just support over the years. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And thanks again for thinking of me for coming to do this.
Yeah, I hope you had fun, and maybe we'll do it again. Like anyway, I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you, CJ, again, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye for now.